As much as us normies are sick of hearing about the power of AI, Big Pharma is still absolutely fiending over its potential drug discovery capabilities. Every major drug company in the world has at least one AI partner that has a key algorithm to speed up the drug discovery process and eventually get life-changing new treatments to patients faster and cheaper. But the deal that's making all the headlines comes from the biggest pharma company in the world, Eli Lilly, who just spent over $2.7 billion in a new AI-related deal. One of the largest that the pharma space has ever seen. So what exactly is so special about this clanker? What's up, nerds? There's nothing shocking about Eli Lilly spending a ton of money. They've taken all their success in the diabetes and the weight loss space to become the first pharma company to hit a $1 trillion valuation and have since been investing in pretty much everything. Now, this deal is not an acquisition. This is just a collaboration with Chinese biotech company Insilico Medicine. Basically a pinky promise that Insilico will give Eli Lilly some extra special sauce once it's in stock. More specifically, Lilly is giving Insilico $115 million up front in the bank right now. But the other $2.6 billion comes in what they call biobucks. These are only given based on certain performance-related milestones. Insilico only gets that money if its algorithms can identify molecules that can get FDA approved. Think of this like starting a new sales job. The $115 million, that's your salary. You get that no matter what. But the biobucks is like your commission. You only get the big bucks if you perform well. You know, KPIs, synergy, circle back, etc. This didn't come out of nowhere. They've had this partnership since 2013, which was kind of seen as their trial run, if you will. So in both cases, it's very low risk. What's not low risk is the drug development pipeline. You already probably know this, but it takes a lot of time and money to get a drug FDA approved. Starting with preclinical studies, you know, evil scientists mixing things into test tubes, then sticking those things into mice, etc. Early human clinical trials where you're just looking at safety in healthy individuals. These middle clinical trials where you're looking at how efficacious it is in these sick patients. Then finally, a large number of patients, ideally when it's compared to the current standard of care. Billions of dollars and well over 10 years to develop a single FDA-approved drug. There's obviously a lot of incentive to make this happen quicker. So what exactly does Insilico do well that's caught the eye of the world's biggest pharma company? They pride themselves on this platform called Pharma.AI. Super original, I know. It's 3 main modules that span the whole drug discovery workflow, working together like a drug discovery assembly line where each station hands it off to the next. Biology 42, Chemistry 42, and Medicine 42. Of course, named after the number of times that they've sucked on Eli Lilly's nuts. Got it! Station number 1, biology, where you're discovering the biological disease target. These targets can be any protein, any DNA, RNA of any biochemical pathway in your cells that are acting irregularly. If you can find the right target, you can reverse their effects and cure the disease. This usually isn't very easy to do. It could be something as small as a single nucleotide, a single letter typo within your DNA that can be life-threatening. Not to mention that most diseases don't have just one simple cause. It's usually a combination of several genetic and external comorbidities working together. Identifying drug targets is tough. Using AI, you can much more quickly cross-reference all of these very large data sets. 47 million publications, over 1 million omic samples, and almost 1 million clinical trial records. You can more quickly identify what targets need to be targeted. The next station is Chemistry 42. Once you have a target, you need a molecule to treat it. Chemistry 42 designs these drug molecules from scratch. Now, I love me some organic chemistry, but there's only so many papers I can read like this, where they're going through all of the chemical structures that they made, characterized, until I want to throw myself off a bridge on their behalf. Rather than one chemist sitting at a bench thinking about the chemical structures they have to make and hoping that one of them works, they run some specs through some AI models to narrow down the seemingly infinite possibilities. Now, I'm sure all the other AI chemists are doing exactly this, right? But one thing they're doing a little different is something called retrosynthesis. Retrosynthesis is doing chemistry backwards. The model shows you what the final molecule needs to look like, and each chemical reaction, each intermediate, needed to get there. A lot of AI models focus on these beautifully crafted molecules, but are near impossible to actually make. Having one with retrosynthesis built in allows chemists to evaluate at each step whether it actually is possible or not. With the target and the molecule, you now end up at Station 3, Medicine 42. This is a way to plan and test a clinical trial before you have to run it. And this part is make or break. At this point, companies have already spent years developing this medicine, and if it doesn't become a clinical success, it can often lead those companies bankrupt. That potentially curative medicine can't be made. Having a model that's trained on different clinical trials helps drug developers design a clinical trial that meets the very high standards of these government regulators, the FDA, Health Canada, etc., before they even have to start recruiting patients. But here's where things get interesting, because it's 2026, all right? Every AI company says they got a model for everything. A slick demo, a minimalist interface that is almost identical to ChatGPT for some reason, but very few of them have a molecule that has actually gone through the clinical trial process. But Insilico, they do. You're looking at Rentosertib. It targets a protein called TNIK. Think of it like a faulty construction crew inside your body. Normally when your tissues get damaged, the construction crew comes in, patches it up, and then calls it a day and goes home. In a disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, this crew just doesn't leave. They continue to work even after the job is done, adding layer after layer after layer of plaster. Please, dear God, stop adding the plaster. You might think this means more healing, but in reality, it causes fibrosis or scar tissue. And in something like your lungs, something that needs to be very flexible, this fibrosis makes it rigid, makes it harder to breathe until eventually you can't anymore. There is no cure for it. Median survival is only about 3 to 5 years. But in this case, Biology 42 identified TNIK as the target. Chemistry 42 identified Rentosertib as the potential molecule. And Medicine 42 planned the clinical trial, but the humans actually ran it. The trial in question is found in this paper here, published in Nature Medicine. Half the patients were given Rentosertib, the other half a placebo. Then both groups were measured for their forced vital capacity, or the last breath after a long exhale. Patients on 60 milligrams of Rentosertib per day gained 98.4 milliliters of lung function. Meanwhile, the placebo group lost 20.3 milliliters. On paper, that looks like an impressively large amount more volume that your lungs can store, but it's not clinically significant. Even the authors themselves say it's only a 2.8% increase in forced vital capacity. They wanted to see a 12% increase and a 200 milliliter vital capacity. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it is impressive in some ways. Notably, the timeline. From the initial preclinical concept, so nerds just typing prompts into their agentic AI, to a phase 1 trial was only 30 months. The current industry standard without using AI models is usually 4 to 6 years. So even if Rentosertib fails its phase 3 clinical trial, it would still save that company years and potentially billions of dollars in costs to get to that point. But let's step away from the money aspect for a second and talk about what actually matters. Patient lives. Think of any person you know that's needed some type of treatment. Cancer, depression, torn ACL, whatever. Let's say that treatment fails. They need something new, and they need it fast. Systems like Pharma.AI would empower companies to get that new treatment quicker, or it'll help them identify those shitty treatments quicker so that they can go back to the drawing board to develop something that will give your family or friend that extra boost to their quality of life. We'll be seeing lots more companies using these types of models because it's a survival instinct. Pharma companies need to continually identify new drug targets if they want to continue making new drugs and make new money. They currently make their money from patents, but patents expire. If they can use AI to compress that drug discovery pipeline by 30%, they can continue to make new patents. You see where I'm going with this? Even the $1 trillion company is afraid of not staying on top of the latest trends. If they're doing it, everyone else will too. I think there are a few things about this partnership that helps everyone. Firstly is the biobuck structure. The fact that people only get paid if they do good work. It incentivizes Insilico to not just throw things at the wall and see what sticks, but to actually get efficacious drugs to patients. But this isn't freeable. Like every company's AI models, it's a black box. No one really knows what's going on that makes it as good as it is. Every company has their own proprietary sauce. And on that note, there's seemingly an infinite number of AI drug discovery companies now. But if every partner has a black box model, then how is anyone helping each other out? The answer is they're not, which means that in some backwards ass way, it might not be that much faster to get the best treatments to patients. This just goes to show that academic research, as always, is super important. We need that kind of transparency that only academic researchers like to give. Now, y'all know me, I'm an optimist. I like to stay positive because nerds will do literally anything to teach people how cool their science is. I think that will overcome all of these competition barriers. And at the end of the day, we will see drug discovery move a lot faster and a lot cheaper, which means we'll see more life-changing therapies come quicker. If you want to see how AI drug discovery is done right, especially in an academic setting, I recommend you click this video here. They not only made a big open source database, but then finely tuned their model in a bunch of different ways to make sure that they were making the most effective drug possible. God, nerds are so sick. That's all for me today. Thank you all for stopping by, and you stay classy, nerds.